In every generation, it seems, an individual comes along who manages to win the respect of the world, not through politics or war or even show business, but through a simple sense of humanity. Dr. Albert Schweitzer was such a man, devoting his life to helping the people of Africa. Mother Teresa is also such a person, a 69-year-old nun who carries out her humanitarian work in perhaps the worst slums in the world, that black hole of poverty and misery that dominates the city of Calcutta. A few months ago, Mother Teresa was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize, a great honour, but as we found, she's hardly the type of woman to let it distract her from the work at hand. The world is calling you a living saint. How do you feel about that, when people call you a saint?
Nothing to feel about it, because we are all meant to be holy, since we have been created for that. We have been created as children of God, in His image. And so we are what we are in the eyes of God. I know what I am before God. Therefore, what people say, it's immaterial.
Whether or not Mother Teresa is a living saint, to these lucky ones among India's starving millions, she's a godsend. These food lines are a good example of her priorities. Last December, after winning the Nobel Peace Prize, Mother Teresa refused the traditional banquet for the prize winner. She insisted the $7,000 the dinner would have cost be used to feed 400 of India's poor for a year. Every morning, thousands of Indians like these gather at Mother Teresa's 59 centres around Calcutta. Many of these people have travelled hundreds of miles to get here. The reason they go to those lengths is really quite simple. They'd starve to death if they didn't. Every year in India, millions of others do. Mother, you also told me that you thought that it would be harder for poor people, say in my country, in Australia, than it is for the poor people here in Calcutta.
Yeah, I find it much more difficult, the poverty of our poor people in Melbourne and in New York and London, because if I pick up a person dying of hunger, I give him a plate of rice, I fulfill the need. But the people who are lonely, feel full of pain inside, unwanted, unloved, who have been forgotten by their own children maybe, who are a throwaway of society and dying of sheer loneliness. I think that's much greater poverty, and a plate of rice and a piece of bread and butter is not going to remove. And this kind of people, we have many.
Mother Teresa's concern for the wealthy man's poverty comes as a shock when you consider her daily environment. It could be said there are really no slums in her city of Calcutta, that Calcutta is one gigantic slum. While most large cities throb with life, this place is screaming in pain. For Calcutta's millions of street people, living conditions could hardly be worse than they are. But according to Mother Teresa, there are problems just as bad in places like Australia.
And I think, say for example, in Melbourne, we work with the alcoholics. No, this to me is a very great disease, and a disease that needs lots of understanding love and real tender love.
Seeing Mother Teresa and her tiny army at battle with Calcutta's misery, the question is, why do they bother? Calcutta is indescribably squalid, far worse than those pictures we got from school day geography lessons about the black hole. So where does a handful of nuns begin in a city of 7 million, where it's much easier to count the people without problems? There are those who argue that her approach does nothing to eliminate the root causes of India's suffocating hardship, that she ignores the basic and obvious problem of overpopulation.
No, because there are other people who can do that. Mine is to pick up that person and help him, if he has to die with dignity, and if he's hungry, just to feed him, if he's naked, just to clothe him, if he's homeless, just to give him a home.
It also doesn't seem to bother you that India is such an overpopulated country.
No, it doesn't, because we are taking every possible step to teach or lepers, or beggars, or slum dwellers, natural family planning. And in Calcutta alone...
You mean the rhythm method?
Rhythmism. And in Calcutta alone, we have had 73,000 less babies born in 6 years. It's a big thing. So we have helped the country.
What do you say to those people who criticise your work because you are so much opposed to contraception and abortion?
Nothing to say. I only say it is a murder.
You think that would be murder?
Yes. And abortion is a pure murder.
And you don't think that people being born into those conditions could also be murder?
The poor people don't do abortions. A poor woman will give birth to her child, leave the child maybe in the dustbin even, but she'll give birth to her child.
In Calcutta's cesspool existence, living is little more than waiting for death. And even dying peacefully at home isn't possible if you're homeless. That's why Mother Teresa turned an old Hindu temple into a home for the destitute, to give them somewhere to put their head down and die. The most striking feature of this frail 69-year-old Yugoslav nun is how ordinary she is. Her good humour and compassion are only matched by her shrewdness as an organiser of both people and rupees. Mother, when we were talking earlier, you also said that you wouldn't like our film to be a way of raising funds.
No.
Do you think that means that you'd be exploiting these people if you did that?
Yes, exactly. They are not a zoo, neither are they to be sure. It is not the only reason I give permission to be done this, and I am talking to you now, it's only because I want to create that knowledge that these people have been created by the same loving hand of God, that they are our brothers and sisters, and that we receive much more from them than we give to them.
Mother Teresa says she leaves it to God to balance the order's books, but he does get human help for costly projects like this one. In a land short on education and literacy, it seems no one wants to know the mentally retarded, people who, even by India's standards, are outcasts. For Mother, her sisters, and a fraternal order, one project inevitably leads to others. Their latest is a colony for India's most untouchables, lepers. 80,000 of them in Calcutta, 3.2 million throughout India.
सावन भादो के निसी अंधियारी दादुल शब्द करो गाय बछरू फूटही पर बिलखे तुलसी चले ससुरारी अब मन तुलसी बनल बैरागी अब मन तुलसी.
Brother Christodas runs this leprosy centre, a depressing place for a visitor without the brother's eternal optimism.
We had a case of, for example, one patient who had been thrown by their own parents into a garbage heap. And she was about a 19-year-old girl. And she was thrown into the heap of garbage in a dying condition. And we brought her here. And then a spoon-feeding service saved her life. And she showed signs of life. And later on, she also showed signs of love. And they got married. And they are settled here. And she's working here. She's a normal person now.
Mother Teresa is spending her award money from the Nobel Prize, $190,000, to build more hospitals for lepers. How does Mother Teresa's loving God allow such widespread misery?
If we use suffering in the right way, then it can bring us closer to God. It can purify us and sanctify us. But God has not created suffering. Suffering comes from evil that is in us. We are created. Same as poverty. God has not created poverty because Jesus, being rich, became poor for love of us. But the poverty is because we are holding. The moment we begin to share, there will be no poverty. The Ark of the Covenant, the rainbow you are, through the deluge.
There are some who criticise Mother Teresa's religious interest in death as a morbid preoccupation. But not since Mahatma Gandhi has any individual reminded the world so bluntly of the mountainous pile-up of poverty on India's pavements. Her original call to the slums remains the first love for this woman whose order literally picks people out of the gutters. Her sole aim is to make death in Calcutta a more peaceful experience than living.
It's a home for the sick and dying destitute. So all of these are only picked up from the streets of Calcutta.
What kind of people are they, Mother?
All kinds of people. People that have no one, have lost everything, are wanted by no one. Throwaway of society.
This was the first house that you set up, wasn't it?
Yes, in 1952.
Why did you choose the slums of Calcutta as a place to do your work? Because there are a lot of other places.
They are the poorest of the poor.
You cannot sit. You can't sit. Hey, don't put it away.
This man will die any moment. He'll certainly be there within an hour or so. But that's why he was brought here. It wasn't just that he had nowhere to live, he had nowhere to die. Actually, the atmosphere in this place is quite intriguing. There's none of the stench, none of the agony, none of the self-pity that we usually associate with inevitable death.
He wants to go to Noble Peace, to the brothers there. We'll send him tomorrow, let him go there. And that one, that young boy will take to Premdan. Premdan, that one.
In 27 years, Mother Teresa has seen more than 20,000 destitutes die here.
These two can go to Premdan.
But to her, that's not as tragic as it might seem.
They're asking, it's a very beautiful way. That's the greatest development of a human life. Naturally, we all want to go back to God. And to be able to die in peace with God, we need a pure life. And the suffering of these people purifies them. And that's why they die in such great peace.
हाँ की खाबे खाना खा लिया दो खाबे ना ना दो खाना खा लिया दोनों बेला खा लिया ओ अच्छा हाँ वो नहीं कर
It is true, some of them are very great suffering, but even that man who is nearly in his last, I asked him, are you feeling very bad? He said, no, I'm feeling much better. And he's in a big cancer. Now, if he was a rich person in a special hospital, quite possibly he will be screaming and they would have to give morphine and this thing. But that was that man. Wonderful. What a lesson for us all.
Yeah, I'll feed this one.
Hey, who balato? Acha, mother cook.
How happy he is that he's all right. He was very sick.
Twice you came to him and he was still alive.
Do you think it's ever possible for us to have a world where the sort of hardship that you see every day doesn't exist?
It may come one day, then the missionaries of charity will be unemployed.
The missionaries of charity toil 7 days a week, 52 weeks a year, with little noticeable impact on the world's most unchanging poverty. But on the spot, it's hard to ignore the comfort they bring to people whose wretched lives are almost beyond European understanding. For the most pathetic of them, the homeless and unwanted, death at Mother Teresa's House of the Dying could be the only moment of peace they know.
Hello, I'm Dimity Clancey. Thanks for watching 60 Minutes Australia. Subscribe to our channel now for brand new stories and exclusive clips every week. And don't miss out on our extra minute segments and full episodes of 60 Minutes on 9now.com.au and the 9Now app.